now we're going to transition over to a shared stewardship portal demo, and I'm going to hand it to Andrew Frederick from Forestry Division to give an introduction to our next presenter.
Absolutely. Thanks, Colin. And just real quick, because we want all this time to have Mindy here show us this demo, because we're really excited about it. And like Colin mentioned, we hope you're all back, but we're really excited to show you this. This is our shared stewardship portal. And for about the last year, some folks in this room on our core team and Mindy's team at the Timmins Group, which is a GIS solutions company, among other things, happened to be on a price agreement in New Mexico. And we've heard about them and have worked with them in the past on other things, and it was a perfect fit. And so here we are a year later with a semi almost totally final portal demo to show you. And so we hope to have this, publicly available in the next few weeks. And we're really interested to see what y'all do with it, because what this is going to help not only track accomplishments that we do in shared stewardship across the state, but it's also going to be a place where we can partner and we can put in impediments and opportunities and track activities and basically be more effective out on the landscape with a web-based portal that we can all have access to and see the same thing. So with that, I'll let Mindy introduce herself. She's awesome. She's like, I know she's some kind of team leader, but she'll brief you on her history. Happy to throw it to Mindy now.
Great. Thank you, Andrew and Colin. Yep. Hi, Mindy Brown, Timmins Group. I think I know some of you obviously through the development of this portal, and your leadership and participation in that has been really phenomenal. But I've seen a few other names out here that I know as well. So yeah, I do work a lot as project manager, but mostly as business analyst for Timmins Group. And it's really exciting work. I get to work with people like you guys all the time and kind of bring your vision and your ideas to fruition. So we don't have a ton of time, so I'm going to dive right in. And speaking of vision, if you haven't seen this already, you're going to see it now. When we do these projects, we really like to nail down what the big picture vision is for what we're building. And for you guys, what the portal really is it's open to a lot of people, right? It's for state, it's for federal, it's local, tribal, and really anybody who is engaged with the common goal of restoring forests and watersheds in the changing climate. So in high level bullet points, what the vision for the New Mexico Shared Stewardship Portal is it should enable everyone to be able to do improved cross-boundary planning with a huge focus on the geospatial, the mapping side of things. Like, let's be able to explore, let's see what our neighbors are doing, let's see what our partners have planned, so that we're not operating in a vacuum. As Andrew just mentioned, we want to get to a place where we're able to have spatial tracking of activities that's consistent. And we're able to do this where we are strategically placing the treatments and the other activities on the landscape where they are going to be most valued. The portal should also enable the facilitation and tracking of these collaborative partnerships of leverage and your other investments, right? We want to get to a better place where we can tell the stories of all this amazing collaborative action and actually be able to quantify it as well, because that's going to just be something that grows and grows. So as a handshake to that, if we're doing all of this great work, we want to have some mechanisms to actually visualize the accomplishments that you guys are achieving across the landscape and have some ability to get some introspection and dig into that and sort of see and assess and analyze what the outcomes of these investments are. And then finally, but certainly not unimportantly, it is the portal is a key tool to be able to implement the 2020 Forest Action Plan. So you'll see that theme kind of running through this whole situation. So what I wanted to do is just to make sure, if there's only 3 things you can remember at the end of this, is that the portal is a shared gateway, right? So we want to invite as many people as possible to participate, to come in here to learn, and fundamentally to be part of collaborative partnerships. Really, we're going to be more powerful when we're all sharing our information. What are you doing? What am I doing? Where are we doing it? Who are we doing it with? Becomes extremely powerful. The other thing is we're working very hard to make this easy to use so that it can be open to people. We really want to have a lot of interactivity with the maps, to be able to zoom in on places you care about, to look around, see what partners are doing, see what work is happening, be able to access, a lot of detail around your projects and your collaboration, and hey, what are the opportunities? Where can I plug in? As well as being able to contribute your own organization's information with forms that aren't like too heavy, too complicated. And then lastly, the portal really should become an incredibly valuable asset to the state of New Mexico. It is a tool to allow you to plan more strategically, but also to collaborate tactically, and fundamentally, again, to get to a place where you can demonstrate the impact of the focus in your priority landscapes. So I want to dive into the demo as quickly as possible, but before I do that, I just want to do a quick primer on terms. I've already bandied about the word project and activities, so I just want to make sure as I dive in, you guys have some concept that when I say project and in the portal, what a project is, it's kind of like this big overall effort where you are going to articulate and try to achieve a specific objective in a certain area. Now, you can have really big projects, incredibly complex. They can include a lot of activities. They can be, a huge time horizon. It could include planning and surveys and treatments, etc. But some projects are going to be extremely focused. They're going to be smaller in extent. They might only have one activity. But ideally, most of your projects are going to be located in these identified focal areas as much as possible. So then when I say activities, I'm talking about the very specific action. So what are you investing in? I'm investing in thinning. I'm investing in prescribed burning. I'm investing in grazing, whatever it happens to be. If the activity is on the ground, it's going to be mapped in the portal. But we also support a number of other activities that won't really have a spatial footprint, but we want to make sure that they are captured and understood as being part of the collaborative effort. Now, activities is where we're going to put dollars. It's where we're going to talk about funding and where we're going to talk about match. So I'm going to dive right into the demo. But keep in mind, when I get to the maps, you're going to see some wonky stuff. The focal areas are correct information. They have been vetted. But the projects and the activities, this is just data we've been putting in for testing and demo purposes. So they won't necessarily look realistic. So just bear with us a little bit. All right, so what I want to walk you through today is the fundamentals of getting in there. What are the accounts, access, things like that. I won't talk about that too much. I want to spend most of my time on exploring information and managing projects, and then kind of close it out with the tools that we have for visualizing outcomes. Now, at this point, I'm probably just going to ask you to hold questions so I can get through as much as possible, and we'll make some time for questions at the end. So with that, I'm going over to the Shared Stewardship Portal login page. You'll see some information here that describes the tool itself. You'll see that I can sign in over here, and I have the ability to contact if I need help. So if you need technical assistance, there is a place to contact folks. And if you just have general questions, there's a place to contact and get some support from the team. But the first thing that you will be doing is you'll be signing up. Are you interested? Well, let's go ahead and sign up. Now, I'm not going to go through the whole workflow of signing up because it's fairly standard. If you've used any web application, you've probably had something similar. But we are going to ask for your email address, for your first name and your last name. And then we are going to ask you some questions. Anyone who signs up is immediately, once they authenticate, going to be able to view and explore. But there's some people who need to actually be contributing data. So if you envision that you are going to coordinate projects, or if you are working on activities and you need to get that data into the system, you would check this box here saying, yes, I do want to be an editor. I do want to have the power to do that. Now, to do that, someone is going to have to approve that action. An administrator will have to do that. And so I don't know if Andrew and the team have talked at all about the concept of organizational administrators, but each organization should really have an accounts administrator so that they can approve other people within their organization to come in. So I'll show you that here in a second. The other thing that you need to do is you need to articulate which organization that you are with. And so we've got a list of organizations. By default, we're on none general public. So if you're not really with an organization, you just want to look around, that's an option. You wouldn't be able to request editing capabilities, but otherwise, you would pick the organization that you're with, and then you would be able to sign up. Now, what happens when you sign up is you're going to get an email that looks a lot like this saying, hey, you've been created, go ahead and get going. You would copy this password, you would click on the link, and you would get up and running with getting your account set up. I'm not going to go through that minutia. Again, that is something that people have done a million billion times, and it's not that interesting to look at. What I will do, however, is I will show you what it looks like on the receiving end. So I have now come into the shared stewardship portal, and I'm logged in as a user. I think I'm logged in as a user who has got the ability to manage roles. So I'm in the manage users section. I'm an organizational admin, and I see this grid here for Forestry Division of New Mexico, EMNRD, and that's because that's who I'm associated with. I'll see this requested editor, I'll see yeses. And so what the organizational admins can do is they can take a look and say, okay, yes, I do want to let this person in. It is appropriate for them to be editing. So I could assign them the browser role, which is really just looking around, or I could promote them and say, yes, this person should be able to be an editor. And at any time I can come in and I can demote people. If they leave the organization, I can just take away their editor roles. You'll also see that there's a manage orgs over here. This is really just for New Mexico Forestry. So as new people come and sign up, if they don't see their organization, this is how the New Mexico admins are going to be able to create new organizations. So don't fear if you go in there and your organization isn't there. There is a mechanism for that to be created. So I'm going to go back and I'm going to sign in. This time I'm going to sign in as a Soil and Water Conservation District user. So I'm signing into the portal. And what I see by default is all of the active projects that my organization is associated with. Now I could be, our organization could be the lead. So you'll see over here, coordinating organization. So if I'm the coordinating organization, I'm going to see that here. But if my organization is a partner on the project, I will also see those projects in this list. So there's some sortability in this table. You can change how many items you see per page. But up here, you also see the navigational options. I'm here on the home page. I can go to the Explorer, which I will do in a moment. I can go to the dashboard, which I'll do later, so we can visualize outcomes, or I can go in and I can actually search the entire database. So I'll come back to that in a bit. But for now, I'm on the home page. Over here, if I have editor rights, which I do in this case, I can create a new project. Alternatively, if I already know where I want to go, if there's a specific project or focal area or priority landscape or top 500 watershed, if I want to zoom right to that thing, I have this tool to do that. So I'll do that in a minute. But first, let's just pretend I don't really know what I want to do. I just want to go in and I want to explore the information in the portal. So I'm clicking over here on the Explorer tab, and what it does is it loads up this map. It's got a default base map, and you'll see some shapes start to come in. The blue shapes are the focal areas. These green shapes are the projects, and then the red shapes are the specific activities within a project. So I've got, some zoom in controls, zoom out controls. I can click and drag to pan. I'm using my mouse wheel now to zoom in, and there might be a little bit of a lag there. So I can zoom around. So that's sort of the basics 101 of mapping. Over here on the left, you'll see a panel. These are our Explorer tools. I can close the panel if I want more map space to work with, or I can open it back up if I need to use the tools in that panel. By default, you're going to land on the Explorer tab, and it'll tell you you can click on shapes here in the map to get more information here in this panel, which I'll do in a moment. Over here, we've got layers and we've got a legend. If you've used a mapping application before, it's fairly standard to be able to turn layers on and off. We have categorized our layers into 3 sets. We've got Explorer layers, and these are layers where you will actually be able to leave the map and dive into more details. We've got base maps, which are just fairly standard. You'll be able to toggle the base maps and the thing underneath is going to change. And then we've got reference layers, which is, again, fairly standard these days. And the team that has been working on this project has put together quite the compendium of really useful layers that are going to help you get context when you're operating in this map. Now you might notice here, there's this little icon. If you've got an icon like this next to your layer, it means you can actually click on these shapes in the map and get more information presented, which we'll take a look at here in a minute. But for now, let's just take a quick gander at the various layers you have available. You've got communities at risk, 5-mile buffer, so that if you can assess whether your project is within 5 miles of an identified community at risk. You've got fire history going back quite a long way. You've got historical forest treatments going up through 2010, and then the one that I had turned on earlier, let me turn those off again, the completed forest treatments are treatments that weren't created here in the portal, but were created sort of in the pre-portal days. So I'm not going to turn on and off every single layer, but there's some really interesting things in here. You've got the riparian corridor, you've got type 500 watersheds, you've got land ownership, priority landscapes, soil and water conservation district boundaries, you've got New Mexico forestry boundaries, as well as some wildfire risk layers, an aggregated one, and then the specific to biodiversity, water supply, and to communities. If you haven't seen the data before, this tool is going to be able to give you the ability to explore this information. It's a lot of information, as you'll see, but you'll be able to turn layers on and off, and you'll be able to control the transparency, which I'm doing here with this slider. It's my opinion, it's best not to put too many things on at the same time. And the other thing I like to do is I like to zoom into a specific area, because otherwise it can just be, information overload. So like I said before, if you toggle over to the legend, you'll actually be able to see what the various shapes in the map mean. I said before, we got blue focal areas, we've got green projects with different symbology based on the status, same with activities. And then if for whatever reference layers are on in your map at the time, you will see its matching legend. So you're seeing wildfire risk to communities, the riparian corridor, and your completed forest treatments. So for now, I'm going to go back over to layers. I'm going to clean up this map a little bit because I want to show you a few things and get rid of some of the other information out here, because it's just a lot to look at all at one go. So what I want to start showing you is the interactive tools to explore. So again, I'm going to zoom down in here and I'm going to say, okay, I would like to learn more about this, this focal area and what's going on in this area. So I'm clicking now with my mouse, I'm clicking on the space right here, which it's essentially intersecting with this focal area. And what it's doing is it's pulling back some basic information. I see here I have clicked on the focal area called Santa Fe Fireshed. I have a little summary here of the strategies that have been identified for this particular focal area. I can see the priority landscape it's associated with. I can actually turn that on if I wanted to. And I see the projects that are in this focal area. There are 3 projects at the moment. There's Hyde Memorial Park, Santa Fe Aztec Springs, Santa Fe project. So if I were to actually zoom to one of these projects, it would select it and it would show me this information in the map. Now, the other thing that's important to understand about the Explorer is we have layers and layers of information. So if I were to click on this shape right over here, this activity shape, it's actually going to click on the activity shape, the project shape underneath it, and the focal area underneath of that. So on the left here, I'm seeing focal area, page 1 of 3. So same thing we just looked at a second ago. If I click the little right arrow, it's now going to show me the project that I clicked on. And if I click on the arrow again, it's going to bring back the topmost layer, which is the activity. So I can see this is a prescribed grazing. I know that it was done for the purposes of invasive plant removal. I see that it's finished. I know who the activity manager is, and I know what the actual completion date was. So you can go back and forth and you can explore any of these things. If I had also, or if I had clicked here, I would also be pulling back information about that completed treatment. So instead of the activity, this one, I'm pulling back page 3 from the completed forest treatments layer. I'm seeing this is the prescription from 2017. I can see the broadcast burning. So all of this is sort of older information, but it's certainly still useful information for anyone wanting to explore. So let me go back to the focal area for a moment, because what I want to show you is this Explorer is extremely powerful, but it is in essence what we show you on the left is a summary. So for focal areas, projects, and activities, you will see a little link in the Explorer, which is Go to Details. Whenever you click the Go to Details button, it's going to bring you to a full page of information. So I see the map again here. I can see the name, what the priority watershed is, and for focal areas, what we show you are the key points of contact, one at the New Mexico Forestry Division and one at the Forest Service. So if ever you want to get in contact with these folks, that information is right here. As I scroll down, again, I'll see the focal area strategies, and I'll see an inventory of the projects in this area. We classify them by active projects, and then also, if I scroll down, inactive projects. Now, there are no inactive projects in this particular focal area, but I can go to the details of any of the projects in the focal area if I want. If I scroll down even more, I will see the collaborating partners in this focal area, which is a summation of all of the partners and coordinating organizations on the projects. So you start to really get a sense of all of the good stuff that's happening just within this focal area. There are certain people who have the ability to add these helpful links to a focal area. So if you're coming in and looking and the folks have put some information in here, you'll be able to come in and get more information. So it could be, grant application link. It could be all kinds of different things. So, we've got, a few helpful links in here right now for this focal area. The last thing that's specific to a focal area is this ability to print a report. If you're applying for a grant and you need to be able to say something about the focal area you're working in, you would just be able to print this off as a PDF and include it. And what it has in here is just some summation information about the strategies, about the partners, and about the focal area's investments to date. So at this point, I want to call out the fact that if you're on a focal area page or a project page or an activity page, you can always go back and view that thing in the Explorer. So I just clicked View and Explore, and boom, it took me right back to the Explorer, zoomed me right to the thing, and I have it selected. What I'd like to do now, though, is I would like to wear the hat of someone who is wearing or who is participating in, I'll get to activity types in a minute, the Soil and Water Conservation District, and we want to be collaborating. We want to see what's going on. We have an interest in this area right here, but we see that there's already things in play in this particular project. So I'm going to click on the project here to get that information because I want to do a bit of a deeper dive. Whose project is this? What are they doing? I'll scroll over to this project and I'll say, okay, this is a forestry project. It's in progress. Okay, it's a community protection project. Great. Let me go to its details page and get some more information. Now, this is a fairly information-rich page for the projects. It's probably these and activities have the most information. The first thing that I'm going to call out is that the project narrative should include some basic information about what are the dates of the project, who's involved, who's the contact, and we'll take a look at actually setting this up for yourself. So I can come in here and say, oh, great, they're still looking for partners. I know who I'm supposed to contact. Fantastic. On a project details page, you will also see the project focus and the project strategies that the coordinating organization has articulated. And you'll see all of the activities listed for that project. I'll get into activities a little bit more in a second. We see the project partners. We've got Nature Conservancy and Forest Service so far. And what we're doing with all projects and activities is we're intersecting their boundaries with priority landscapes, with focal areas, with watersheds, and with ownership. So at a glance, we can get a sense for any project what their alignment is, where it is relative to other geographies. And then lastly, down here is a great place for people to be exploring what the opportunities are. You know, can I partner up? What's going on? Can I get a grant? Can I participate? Are you looking for match? So the coordinator will put in some opportunities. So I see grants are available and there's a community engagement event I might be wanting to participate in. They can also list impediments. Hey, what's getting in our way? We'd like to be successful, but you know, in this case, we need volunteers. We need education and outreach volunteers. So if I'm with a Soil and Water Conservation District and I want to participate, I would want to be able to get on as a partner, which I would normally do, but in the interest of time, I'm not going to do right now. The last thing I do want to do before moving on is to show you what it's like to create a project. And then I'll create an activity and you'll get to see the activity list. So I'm with the Soil and Water Conservation District. I'm clicking to create a project. And the first thing I want to do is I actually want to say, hey, where is this project? Now, I had just done my exploration, so I know what's going on out there, and I know that there's a great opportunity for me to work in this area because I know the Forest Service is doing work over here. So I'm going to draw in my project boundary. And so you'll see on the bottom left, or excuse me, on the bottom right, I clicked draw. I clicked in the map. I can keep it. I can draw more shapes if I want to. In this case, I'm going to keep it and say, this is where we intend to do work. Down here, I'm going to give it a name. Let's say project 1. I'm going to say what kind of project this is. So I'll say this is also a community protection project, but there are other opportunities for picking all different kinds of project types. By default, it's in a plan status, but if it were already in a different status, you could pick a different status. I would indicate the types of focus that this project should have, right? So I might say it's forest health. I might say it's wildfire, wildland communities. And then same deal, I can pick strategies, right? So I can say, okay, we're going to manage for fire and public safety and education and restore forests. The project narrative is very important. For time purposes, I'm not going to say too much about it, but again, you want to be able to really clue people in who are looking at your project what this project is about. So when I save the project, I now have a new project, and Soil and Water Conservation District is the coordinating organization. I can change the map, I can change this information. I have all of these pieces of data already in here, and I can add projects. I can add partners, the project geography is being calculated, and because I'm the coordinating organization, I can add any opportunities and impediments that I want my partners to be aware of. So let me go ahead and add an activity. This is one of the things that I was being asked about. So you start with figuring out what the focus is. Is it education and outreach, forest management, invasive plant removal, planning, post-fire restoration, project management, technical assistance, utilization, volunteer hours, and wildfire risk reduction? So I'll pick this last one because I'm here. Depending on what you pick up here, the activity list is going to change. So in this particular case, we've got cut and stump herbicide, foliar herbicide, all of these goodies, and it's a long scrollable list. So as I said before, some of the activities need to be mapped. This is one that needs a spatial footprint. So it zooms me right to the project boundary, and I can go ahead and I can map in where I suspect that that work is going to happen. It doesn't have to be perfect when you first start, because you can come in and edit this information later. You can change the boundary later if you need to. It's not hacked in stone. So if this is just proposed, then you would be able to leave it in that status, or you can change it. Maybe it's already in a plan status. By default, I'm the activity manager, but if somebody else is actually managing the activity, we can change that as well. We've got the planned completion date. Over here, we've got some optional information. If it's already completed, you could put that in, a unit and a block, a reported acres, and hey, is this adjacent and within a 5-mile buffer of communities at risk? So the question just came in, can I import? Yes, you can. So you can import KML and you can import shapefiles. So if you don't want to draw the thing, if you've already mapped it elsewhere, you would be able to bring that shape in from another data set. There's 2 different ways to get the project boundary in, and there's 2 different ways to get the activity boundary in. So now I'm saving the activity. It is now being added to the project. Again, this one is mapped, so we see a map here. We're now on the activity details page. Everything that you just saw is listed here. The system is busy calculating the intersects, but most importantly now is money, right? So we have added this activity. Let's figure out what the funding is going to look like. And these things can change over time. You do have the ability to edit. So the one thing you want to do first is to pick the funding organization. So I might say, well, we're going to fund this one. I'm the Soil and Water Conservation District, and we're going to use our program funds. We'll say this is going to be, we're investing $1,000. That's our planned amount. I don't know the actual amount yet because I haven't done the work yet. I'll hit save. Now later on, you might come in and actually update it with the actual amount and say, well, we ended up spending $2,000. I'm not counting this as match, but it's possible that we actually also have match funds. So it could be that, hey, you know, we've got some match funds coming in from New Mexico Finance Authority, their water trust board, and they're giving us $500 of match. And then we would click the box. And this way we can keep track and roll up back to the project all of the costs of the component activities for this project. If I go to the project details, you'll now see that as I scroll down, I have one activity. And if I keep going down, I'm going to see the funding summary. So far, I only have one thing in here, but this basically adds up all of the activities costs. So you'll see how much we planned to spend, how much the actuals were, how much was match and plan, and how much was actual match. Then we break it down by funding sources. So it's possible in some projects you're going to have lots and lots of funding sources. Now I know I'm going over my time, so Colin, you're going to have to just cut me off if you want to cut me off. Otherwise, I'm going to keep going.
I think it's fine if you can keep going maybe a couple more minutes. This is really great.
Okay, that sounds good. We can provide you guys with a full list of all of the activities that we have in here. Without going through every single one, it's going to be hard to show them all to you. But I did want to show just real quick the difference between a mapped one and one that isn't mapped. So this is education and outreach. And so, for example, we've got training, meetings, seedling, distribution, sign installation, and it's possible that these are going to be growing as time goes on, as people decide, hey, we need more types of activities, and can we update this list? So if I were to add this activity, you see I don't have a map. There's nothing for me to map, so I'll just say training X, and it's proposed, and again, we're going to do this, and here's the planned completion date. Same sorts of information here, and then I will save it. Like the mapped activity, this doesn't have a map, but it will have funding sources. So you can go in and say, okay, we plan to spend this much money on this particular project, and say it was $300 and it was actually $300. I'll hit save. If I go back to the project and I go down to the funding details, you'll see now that we've got $1,800 planned and $2,800. So again, this is how we're able to roll up all of these things. So as a coordinator, you'll have lots of power, but the key thing is, as soon as you add project partners, you are going to be unlocking this project to other users. So anyone who's logged in as City of Santa Fe and they have an editor role, they would be able to participate and add activities to this project. So now City of Santa Fe users have been listed as project partners. They can come in and they can put in activities, because anyone who has that kind of collaborative impact and participation, we want to make sure that they can get their data in here as well. So I got two more quick things to hit. I'm not going to belabor search too much, but you do have the search interface to be able to find and filter the list of projects that are in the system at any given time. Is it doing it? There we go. And you can export the data. So when you're exporting the data, you're not only getting the project information, but you're also getting the activities and the funding information. So it's a fairly rich data source. We've got 3 tabs. We've got the projects listed here in that filtered set. For each project, we have all of their activities and we have all of the funding. So if you have to do offline analysis, you have the power to do that. The last thing, just real quick, is the visualization of outcomes, right? So we're only just starting to unlock this. When you guys get started, there's not going to be a ton of data to power these dashboards. But where we do want to land ultimately is a place where we can monitor and look at shared stewardship in priority watersheds, look at shared stewardship in your focal areas, and be able to just explore the shared stewardship treatments. So I'm going to go into the priority watersheds, and then I'll pause and we can discuss and look around more if you want. So these visualizations, and you'll have to apologize, my monitor's a little strange, so things look really tiny, are going to give you an at-a-glance look at what's the data related to completed treatments. Not all the treatments, just completed treatments. And keep in mind, these are only the mapped treatments, not the unmapped activities. For each of these little cards, you have some information describing how the information is calculated. But generally, we've got what you see right here. There's 59 completed treatments in the database. They make up, 1.47 million acres. This is how much there is in total funding, and this is how much there is in match funding. Then down here, you can get a sense of who is actually making up this funding. So we've got just this breakdown of lots of different funding organizations. On the right bottom, you can see match funds by organization, starting at the top, Forest Service. Each of these can also be expanded. Each of these cards can get bigger. So if you hover over them, you can actually see the actual amounts. You can minimize them again. But the map interaction is pretty exciting. It takes a little bit of practice to figure out how to use these Esri tools. But as you use the select tool, it will allow you to kind of draw in areas and pick and basically filter the map. So I picked these watersheds here. And as I pick these watersheds, all of these things updated. So I can say within these watersheds aggregated, there are 6 completed treatments. There's 470,000 acres, $72,000 in funding, and 30,000 in match. And who's in play? We've got BLM and we've got New Mexico Association of Counties, and you can clear these out. The last way to interact here is to use the filters. So I could filter all of the data by ownership, by completed treatment type, by project partner, by funding organization. So let's say I just wanted to see all of the places where or what the financials were around prescribed burn and broadcast burn. So I'd pick that. I can pick multiple things. Let's say I want to pick mechanical harvest as well. And then I turn on the filter. What it's doing is it's updating these cards, to show me what the results are based on that selection set using that filter. All right, that was a lot. There is so much more, but I don't have time to go through every nook and cranny today. So with that, I'm going to pause for some brief questions, I guess.
Yeah, thanks so much, Mindy. We've had a couple questions. I want to just start with the one that Alyssa O'Brien asked, and maybe you and Joe can team up on this one. The New Mexico Forest and Watershed Restoration Institute has the Opportunity Map, which is the vegetation treatment database, which I think we're all very familiar with. And so maybe you can talk just a little bit about how those two will interact and what the plan is for the future of both. I know that's been one question that's come up a couple times now.
I think it's going to be a little bit tricky for me to speak to the future of them and how they're
Okay.
using.
Yep.
I can
But at the
jump in.
moment, what I can say is that you guys are serving up these layers that we are able to plug in and allow people to interact with, so that the data are, I believe, Joe, if I'm correct, the data are in sync. So whatever data you're showing over there is the same data that we're showing over here.
That's correct.
So I can,
Yeah, and we were, early on in the process, and again, shout out to Joe Zabrowski for being on the core team for this shared stewardship portal, invaluable partner, because he's the inside track on the opportunity map and was there from the beginning. And the idea is not to replace this, and we don't want extra work for folks. So we wanted to make sure that, as we get used to using the portal, as we get a bunch of data in here, if there are people still supplying information to Katie, like as usual, we'll be sure to know that that information is still being represented in the portal.
Yeah, I can add to that too. So we'll continue to maintain the vegetation treatment database, and as it's implemented and activity data gets into the shared stewardship portal, we'll actually be able to download it and bring it into the vegetation treatment database. And we'll probably just focus on completed projects in the vegetation treatment database at that point. So we'll just kind of do a data dump, quarterly of completed projects from the shared stewardship portal, and then bring them into the vegetation treatment database. Because we do have a lot of folks who will be using the vegetation treatment database who may not be in the shared stewardship community. They wouldn't necessarily have accounts and stuff with this, and they don't really need to. They just need to kind of like view where the treatment. So I think it'll be a really nice integrated effort. And like Andrew said, we don't want to duplicate effort. And I think especially during a transition period, we're going to probably see that some folks are more aggressive on implementing the portal than others. So there'll be reasons to go to both for a while for different reasons. But we'll try and sort it out on the back end rather than have users, hey, send it to both of us or something like that. Hopefully we can just retrieve whatever somebody sends to the portal to us. And of course, anybody who has access to our vegetation treatment database can ingest it into here as they see fit, if that winds up being the workflow. So yeah,
Okay.
I think it's gonna work out well, but it's gonna take some getting used to. Oh, and
Yeah,
I'll add one
like
more
anything,
thing
I
too.
mean, it's all about the data that you put into it, and we will. So, I mean, just to emphasize the point, if you enter your treatments or your activities into the portal, there's no need to do the extra work of going into the vegetation treatments database.
But the trick is to maintain status. So
Yeah.
like be sure and come in and mark that it's completed and update the data, because otherwise, it's only as good as what we can pull out. And we're again probably get to help keep it straight is just pull stuff that's completed. So that's
Okay.
kind of a trigger. Like if your project's not showing up in the vegetation treatment database, maybe you didn't check it off as completed.
Okay, that's good. And we do have, I don't know if Abe got his question answered about the different types of activities, but
Yeah,
there
I
is
want
opportunity.
to stop on that because
Oh, sure.
ultimately, we want this portal to be what you guys want. So initially, in this first stage, where we're at now with Timmons Group is post-production. So we needed something to show you. We tried to be as robust as possible, but we know, there's going to be, functional changes to the portal as we know more, as we use it more. And so we really don't want the first look to be like a representation that we forgot you or we are not interested in those activities or anything like that. It's just that we don't know everything we don't know. And so I want to take this time that over the next year, especially, we'll want your feedback and we'll want those items so we can make this portal what it is supposed to be, and that's for you and to use it as a powerful tool.
Yeah, exactly. That's exactly what I was going to say, Andrew.
Well, can I ask kind of a follow-up question or make a
For
comment
sure.
about that? I guess one of our reasons for potentially not entering our projects into the database is that we have a project database EPA runs that we have to enter our projects into, so it would feel like double reporting. I have considered working with you guys. In the past, I thought about maybe working with Katie Withnall on this to give you a periodic uh, Excel spreadsheet with fields that you can use and upload. I don't think that that would be hard for us, and it would be really good for us in terms of outreach to get some of the environment department programs better known in the state, and amongst this group here. Um, what would you think of potentially expanding the activity codes to include water quality BMPs? We could provide a list of water quality BMPs that are the same as those that we choose from our EPA database. That makes sense.
We would love that, Abe. That would be great. And yeah, that's some of the inside baseball stuff that we'd love to talk to you about to make sure, and duly noted, no one wants to do double anything. But your solution is a very wise one and one we've thought about with other partners. There may be some partnering in the portal where data gets entered through other means. And so we totally understand that. And that Excel metadata would be excellent to start with. And we'd love to get a list of your activities so we can make sure on the next update cycle that we give Timmons Group a better set of activities.
Okay.
Right.
All right.
Andrew. This is Jim Utes from the Forest Service. I got a question for you. So you have these activity codes, and this is supposed to be, multi-agency. I was wondering if we could give you the list of our fax activity codes so that there could be some crosswalking to that. That would make it easier to populate this multi-agency map because you could pull our activity codes by that. Would that be helpful?
Absolutely, and Jay Williams and Ian a little bit too, and Ryan Heaslip was partnering on the core team with us, and they have reviewed, but I don't think we ever got circled back. So that would be great, Jim, if we could do that with you and make sure that again, you guys have the information the best that we can make it, so it crosswalks to facts because we know you have that responsibility as well.
And I can send you that list of codes. That's no problem.
Okay.
And I think that speaks back to the other issue of being able to reduce double entry and be able to pump data in from other data sources. It is something that we talked about. It is technically, a capability. It just wasn't in scope for like this first round of getting this off the ground. But Andrew and everyone on the team fully recognizes that there are some folks that are just so data rich that it would be inefficient to come in here and manually put all this information in. So that's definitely going to be explored once we can get this application off the ground and get things running. But it's going to be super important because that's, we want to have as many participants in here as possible and as much good data in here as possible. So all of these things are really great ideas and definitely achievable.
Yeah, great. We probably have time for one or two quick questions. And again, we've got this, hopefully, we've got this recorded, and if we'll share it out so you can share it with your colleagues and staff and partners and things. But I think that this portal is, it's hard to, it's a great, it's going to be a great tool. It's early in its development, but it's really far ahead in terms of progress and things. So I'm excited about it. And I think this has a great opportunity to really continue to help us get that information that's in our heads out onto some shared map, shared table, and just help us be a little bit more transparent. I love that slide of if everybody knows, we can get work done more
Indeed.
efficiently. So
Yeah. And thanks, Mindy. That was an awesome presentation. And again, I think Laura just put in a good comment here. That's our goal. In the next year, we'll revisit this and we'll see what the portal looks like then, and we'll actually have real data in there. So,
Yeah.
but thanks so much again, Mindy.